that is pretty crazy to me. We are obviously here pretty early for you guys today. I do have a show later, and my sound check is when we would usually be streaming, so that is why we are coming to you guys so early today. I'm not going to mince my words. This is going to be a relatively short episode, so we're going to get straight into it. We have 5 submissions for this week, starting off with Said Life, who is a local musician here in Orlando. This is something that I would describe as like commercial trap. It's something that I can see and hear really easily in reality TV for sync purposes. You have a catchy hook. There's a good mix on this, and I really like your feature. I think it stands out the most, and it helps keep us engaged. My biggest advice for you is to update your DSPs. The branding on like your cover art and the song and like on your DSPs is fine, but you need to just add more information in there. That's my biggest thing. Next, we have Dope from Mark Made featuring Big Benny. This is a bouncy trap song with some spacey elements. There's a very simple, catchy hook, which makes it, super memorable. The verses are very hard-hitting. There's engaging production. I really enjoyed the melodies in this, and the mix is pretty nice. Next, we have Free Your Mind Beta Mix from MJ. And this is like just groovy modern R&B. This is a female vocalist who has a lot of like theatrics in her voice. Like her cadences change a lot, which I really appreciate. The production is a little bit loopy, and the vocals can be monotone at some points, but I really enjoyed the storyline overall, and I like the hook as well. Next, we have Extra BS in parentheses Dogs from Made by Terry. If I could just compare this song to just make a comparison, I would talk about Vince Staples. I really got like that kind of energy. The mix is a little bit muddy, and the production is definitely fighting with your vocals, so I don't know if you engineer your stuff or if you have someone who does that, but I would definitely pay further attention to those specific things. And I really like the barking sample. I thought it was cool. Obviously, that is a motif in this song, but it feels like there could be something added to make it a little bit fuller, whether that be like a new bass line or different drums somewhere. I'm not sure, but I felt like there was just an empty space that needed to be filled. That's all the music for this week. If you want to hear any of this stuff, go into the description or the comments and find the link with all of this information and all of the links so that you can tap in with these folks. I will be playing Dope on the radio, not tomorrow, but next week, and that's the newest addition to the Run It Back podcast. So with that being said, let's move into the My Like section. If this is your first time watching, the My Like section is literally just me talking about stuff that I want to talk about. So we're going to do that. First up, hip-hop will forever be memorialized in the Bronx thanks to a new museum in the community where it was founded, and now that museum is getting a big endorsement to the tune of $5 million. This is a down payment because we are planting the seeds for the next generation, Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson said. The federal grant will go towards completing construction of the Universal Hip Hop Museum, funding K-12 educational programming, and building affordable housing in the surrounding neighborhood. From the local jobs stimulating the economy, the intersection of education, culture, and hip-hop, making sure our young people have a level playing field, that we balance those scales of justice so that we are training the next artists and producers and DJs, etc., so that we know our young people are destined for success, Gibson says. I think this is a really cool initiative, and especially the fact that they're that housing is a part of this initiative, I think is really cool. And I think it's just like a happy thing to talk about in a world of sad stuff going on. The next story that we have, the company, let me make sure I know what I'm talking about before. Okay. So what we're talking about, what we are talking about is essentially Spotify moving away towards looking at podcasts as a way to become profitable. Spotify has the largest market share over streaming, but they have never been a profitable company. And so over the years, they've been looking into different avenues in order to, make up for that, because of course, most of the revenue gets paid out to musicians. That's why there's that discrepancy. So they went in the direction of podcasts, and they were producing a lot of podcasts and putting a lot of money into podcasts, and it hasn't really had a return. They've been kind of looking at YouTube's payout method, which is all based off of ad revenue and splitting of advertisement revenue. So the idea is that Spotify is going to move in that direction, moreover, like maybe possibly garnishing the wages taken from sponsorships or advertisers that podcasters, are able to get on their own, because Spotify, if you have the premium, version, is ad free. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. We're going to continue to see how Spotify decides to combat the challenge that becoming profitable has been for them. And it's interesting that they're looking outside of music, because obviously, once again, the reason that they're not a profitable company is because they pay so much of their income or their revenue out. So yeah, I think it's just interesting to continue looking at, and obviously just the way that business works, them doing competitor research and specifically looking at YouTube. Moving on, there's a skills shortage in music. I'm going to read this excerpt. There's genuinely a skills shortage right now, says music industry veteran Ed St. John. Something happened during COVID. During those 2 years of no gigs and no work, a lot of people left the music industry and went somewhere else, especially the casual workers who survived from one gig to the next. They either retired altogether or found other ways to earn more money. The industry is hiring smarter and smarter people, Chalmer explains. It may have been the case for rock and roll jobs in the past, but today they're looking for people with a very sophisticated understanding of the industry. You only need to look at all of the digital platforms as proof of that. And for the first time, perhaps in Australian history, there are actually more jobs than people out there. I think that this is really interesting. And it lays it all out for you. COVID shook the industry in a way that, we really haven't seen before, especially the live sector, because that's really what we're talking about here. And yeah, so it's just, the biggest takeaway from this is obviously get skilled. If you're interested in live production, get skilled in that, because there's a shortage of your expertise. Moving forward, as first reported by Bloomberg and confirmed by Music Business Worldwide by multiple sources, a number of TikTok users in Australia no longer have the choice to use some major label licensed music in their videos. In other words, TikTok has removed major record company music from the service for a subset of its users. Why? Sources suggest TikTok is aiming the results of the experiment in their next round of record company licensing negotiations. TikTok's hope, we're told, is that the removal of major label music won't have a profound effect on the engagement of the users on the service, and this opens up conversations about the true monetary value of music licensing from major record labels. I think that this is really interesting, because I agree that major music, major label music is not the backbone of TikTok. The backbone of TikTok is independent underground music. So I think that this is really cool, and this experiment, I think, is gonna give TikTok a lot of leverage and a lot of negotiating power. So we'll see where it goes. Pretty interesting. Next, we have some industry updates. Not too many. We're coming close to the end, y'all. Like I said, this is going to be a short episode today. First, Thomas Cosfield has been appointed the new CEO of BMG. He will succeed Hartwig Mauch with effect from January 1st of 2024. The change in leadership is part of a long-term succession plan. Hartwig Mauch will remain associated with Bertelsmann in an advisory capacity. Next, this is gonna be long-winded, so just bear with me. But we're talking about the Grammys. There doesn't seem to be a recent time in memory when the Grammy Awards haven't been clouded in some kind of controversy. This year, the run-up to music's biggest night, Drake doubled down on his long-standing beef with the Recording Academy by not submitting his album Honestly Nevermind for consideration. In a 2020 Instagram story, the rapper wrote, "I think we should stop allowing ourselves to be shocked every year by the disconnect between impactful music and these awards, and just accept that what once was the highest form of recognition may no longer matter to the artists that exist now and the ones that come after." The Weeknd, after being snubbed of any nominations in 2020 for his highly acclaimed album After Hours, called the Grammys corrupt, and later said that because of secret committees that he would no longer allow his label to submit his music for consideration, a promise he made good on this year with his latest album, Dawn FM. "We want to lift the industry. That's the only thing we care about. So when somebody's upset with us, I'm upset," says Harvey Mason Jr., the Recording Academy CEO. "We have to continue to evolve and change the things that people have issues with so we can ultimately earn the trust of the industry. It's easy to dismiss fabulously privileged celebrities griping about trophies, but the deeper issue at play is the trust has eroded between the music artists, particularly those vocalizing their frustrations on their massive platforms, and an organization whose mission purports to recognize excellence in music." Last year saw nearly 2,000 new Academy members who, according to the organization, represented the most diverse class to date, with 44% from traditionally underrepresented communities and 47% younger than 40 years old. Men still vastly outnumber women among new members, 52 to 32% respectively, with 16% identifying as non-binary or not opting to disclose. However, there is a goal in place to add 2,500 women voting members by 2025. To recognize a wider range of artists, the Academy added 5 new categories to the Grammys debuting this year, including Songwriter of the Year, Non-Classical, Best Alternative Music Performance, Best Americana Performance, Best Score Soundtrack for Video Games and Other Interactive Media, and Best Spoken Word Poetry Album. They also did away with like the secret committees and things like that. So obviously we can tell that the Grammys is making certain changes, specifically when it comes to the voting process, in order to appeal to some of the things that, some of the qualms that artists have had. And, people are always someone's always going to be mad at a competition. Someone is always going to be upset that they didn't win. Someone is always going to feel, what is the word I'm looking for? Unappreciated or overlooked. It's always going to happen. And it's when you have large institutions, like this is the nature of an institution, to be biased and to be corrupt. So it's not something that really surprises me. But I'm glad that they're making changes and they're doing stuff about it to at least like try to cover up the optics of it and do like some PR magic. But with that being said, let's move on. I have one little Web3 comment to talk about, which is that Google is reportedly building an AI bot that can create original music from both text and sound prompts. Users would be able to type in increasingly specific prompts, noting genres and styles, or even build songs based off of a hummed or whistled melody. According to reports, the future app is known in-house as Music LM. I think this is interesting. AI is pretty scary. I've talked a little bit about it before. I don't really know. I just don't. I don't know. I don't think any of us know. And I think that's why it's scary. Anyways, let's talk about some artist accomplishments. First of all, Metro Boomin's latest album, Heroes and Villains, continues to move units. The famed producer just broke a Spotify record. According to the post from Rap TV on Sunday, January 29th, Metro just became the first non-rapping hip-hop producer to surpass 50 million monthly listeners on the streaming platform. Per chart data, Heroes and Villains sits at number 5 on this week's Billboard 200 with an additional 53,000 units, still going strong over 1 month since its release. Next, we have SZA's sophomore studio LP remaining at the number 1 spot on the Billboard 200 chart for a 7th consecutive week. SOS earned the equivalent of 111,000 album units during the latest tracking period. SZA's SOS is now the first R&B album to spend its first 7 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Top 200 since Whitney Houston's Whitney in 1987. Whitney held the spot for 11 straight weeks. In addition, SZA's 7-week reign atop Billboard 200 puts her in a rare company for the modern era. 2021's Encanto soundtrack was the last album to hold the number 1 position for seven consecutive weeks. And then we are talking about Whitney Houston next. Her 1985 self-titled album has passed the 14-time multi-platinum mark for exceeding sales of over 14 million equivalent units. That is groundbreaking album. It's the groundbreaking album's first new certification since July of 1999. Congrats, Whitney. Oh my God, I literally have like a Whitney prayer candle in my car. I wish I had it. Okay, next we're going to talk about some deals, acquisitions, and partnerships, and then we are done. Oh no, we have a legal story, and then we're done. With that being said, firstly, Tidal, the global music and entertainment platform, and Universal Music Group, UMG, the world leader in music-based entertainment, today announced that the two companies will work together to explore an innovative new economic model for music streaming that might better reward the value provided. We have talked about how Sir Lucian Grange talked about this artist-central model of streaming that they didn't know what that was, and so obviously this is the advancement of that conversation that he started. Next, we have Universal Music Group, the world leader in music-based entertainment, today announced an expansion of its partnership with Reverb, a leading environmental nonprofit focused on working with musicians, festivals, and venues to increase the sustainability and reduce the environmental footprint of the live music industry. The partnership was highlighted earlier today when this was released, at UMG Chairman and CEO Sir Lucian Grange's Artist Showcase, and will be featured again at UMG's annual after party to coincide with the 65th Annual Grammy Awards. At the events, a number of emerging technologies have been and will be implemented, from CO2 removal, renewable energy sources, and recycled materials. In addition, the event's menus are both 100% meatless and locally sourced. The events will serve as models for sustainability standards at future UMG events. I think that's super cool, and I'm happy about it. And finally, we do have one legal story. A group of artists have been denied class action status in a lawsuit focusing on termination rights and Universal Music Group. The case has been bubbling since early 2019 when musician John Waite and other artists sued UMG and separately Sony Music, claiming that the major labels had refused to honor their termination rights. Those are rights to reclaim music copyrights after a set period of time, although there is a long-running argument in the US about whether recordings are subject to these rights in the same way that songs or compositions are. Anyway, the judge in the UMG case has ruled that it cannot be certified as a class action suit. The analysis requires understanding for each artist in the circumstances in which the recordings were produced, the creative involvement, if any, of the record label, and the types of resources and payments the record label provided to the artist. So to sum that up, the reason why, all these artists can't band together against UMG is because copyright cases are very subjective, right? It all depends. It always depends. So every person's case that they have against UMG or whatever label it is going to be, very personalized, and is going to be very different from the next person because of, like they said, any resources that were given, any other involvement of like co-authorship and things like that. So with that being said, that is the end of today. If you are local to Orlando, I do have a show tonight with Sound 1000 and Pre-1K. We're going to be at Dreams Lounge. It's going to be a super fun R&B, Valentine's, lovey-dovey type event, and I'm very, very excited about it. I'm going to be performing at 10:30, doors open at 8. I hope to see you there. And then, of course, if you are a lady in Orlando, on the 15th of this month, we are going to be having Women's Wind Down with TMC, specifically my girl Anastasia. She's in the mix. Women's Wine Down is a women's exclusive networking event where we just get together and we talk about what we do. We network, we connect, we show each other our music or our art, our videography, photography, whatever it may be. And we also have guest speakers. So this time around, we have 2 engineers coming in who have done amazing things, and they also co-host a podcast together. And then one of my old professors, Chantel Hampton, who has a very lengthy career in artist development. She's an assistant teacher at Berkeley now, as well as a executive at a company. And then my girl, Abby Sarabia, who is an app developer and owner of the company and app Creators Club, which is an online community and resource for independent musicians. So some really cool people to talk to and ask questions and ask advice from. We're gonna have some food, some drinks. It's gonna be a bunch of fun. So if you are a creative lady or lady adjacent person in Florida in general, definitely check us out. It's gonna be a bunch of fun. And then we do also have in March, coming up, March 3rd, we're going to have the second Darenified Jam session. So definitely look out for that. That's going to be right here in Inner Space, which is the amazing sponsor of our podcast and the reason why we are so cool. So definitely go check them out. And yeah, with that being said, thanks for listening, you guys. I will see you next week.